Is this 3.5-inch color LED touchscreen the only difference the Wiim Ultra has to offer compared to its predecessors? Hardly. Let's get into it. So just a quick history recap on Wiim, who still seem to be ahead of the curve with class-leading digital streamers at shockingly affordable prices. There was the Wiim Mini, Wiim Pro Plus, Wiim Amp, and now the Wiim Amp Pro, along with the Wiim Ultra, which happens to be the first with this beautiful screen on the front, which when connected to Wi-Fi sources through the Wiim app like Amazon Music, Tidal, Qobuz, Spotify, etc., will have the album artwork showing while a song is playing, which is a very nice touch. But there are a few more firsts, my friends. Yes, the Wiim Amp and Amp Pro have HDMI inputs to seamlessly connect to a TV for home theater applications, but the Ultra is the first dedicated streamer to also include an HDMI input. Dedicated streamer meaning it does not have its own amp inside. You need to use your own amp connected to passive speakers or powered speakers to go along with the Wiim Ultra. While reviewing the Ultra, I had it hooked up to some SVS Prime Wireless Pro powered speakers, and also this system here consisting of some Aperion Audio Verus V8B bookshelf speakers being powered by a Peachtree Nova 300 integrated amp. I love the combo of those speakers with the Peachtree amp, but the Peachtree amp does not support wireless audio at all. No Wi-Fi connection, not even Bluetooth. Only physical connections, so the Wiim Ultra allows me to access those modern conveniences we're so accustomed to nowadays, while still getting the sonic qualities I love from this system. Well, with one very big exception that threw me for a loop, but I'll get into that later. I still want to hit on the good for a minute. The Wiim Ultra is very capable when it comes to digital conversion, with its premium 32-bit 384 kHz ES9038 Q2M Sabre DAC. That's a mouthful, and that will thoroughly be enjoyed by any audiophile out there. The Wiim Amp Pro is the only other Wiim product that has the same DAC. The original Wiim Amp had an ES9018 DAC, which is still great, but not quite as good as the ES9038 Q2M. Any previous Wiim streamer like the Pro or the Pro Plus had AKM or TI DACs inside. True, the Ultra does not have its own internal amp for speakers, but it does come equipped with a hi-fi TPA 6120A2 headphone amp for more personal listening. And like any Wiim product, it has physical connections galore. Analog line in from a CD player, optical line in from a digital source, phono line in from a record player, and an HDMI input to connect to your TV, which is ARC compatible, just so you know. And a plethora of outputs such as analog line out to your favorite amp, sub out to connect your favorite subwoofer, optical and coax out if you prefer the sound of another external DAC, USB out, and headphone out. As far as wireless connections, it not only supports Wi-Fi 6E as well as Bluetooth 5.3, but Bluetooth transmission to a pair of wireless headphones. And if you like voice commands, the Ultra supports and home devices. That is done using the remote control that comes with the system, but if you just want to use the buttons instead of the app, you can certainly do that as well. The touchscreen itself displays large album art when connected to a Wi-Fi source, a VU meter, instant feedback, music playback, among other customizable displays. And finally, something big has come to the Wiim family of products: advanced room correction, all done within minutes through the Wiim Home app. But beyond that, there are both graphic and parametric EQs to more finely tune your room to sound just the way you want it to if you like to do those corrections manually. Say with the free REW software paired with a UMic 1 microphone, for example. But there are EQ presets for different genres of music too, if you want to quickly make those changes without having to think about it much. Okay, so that's the good. But before I get into my personal experiences with the Ultra, I want to hit on one major missing feature that was truly a bummer for me in particular. But I know I'm in the minority, so hear me out. Okay, so almost every other iteration of previous Wiim products supported Apple AirPlay 2. The Wiim Amp Pro and the Ultra are the only two devices they sell that do not. I am neck deep in the Apple ecosystem myself, with my workflow being managed on a MacBook Pro, and I own an iPhone, so when I stream music, I always use Apple Music. That's where my carefully curated playlists live. That's what I play in the car to and from my girls' various extracurricular activities. If I want lossless and even high-res lossless, Apple has plenty of content to choose from. That and playing music over Wi-Fi is superior when it comes to fidelity. I mentioned all this to my Wiim contact, saying this product just isn't made for me personally when it comes to music, since I don't subscribe to Tidal, Qobuz, Amazon Music, or Spotify. But they said review it anyway, since they want this reality to be made known to my audience. I was even told that with its support for Bluetooth 5.3 that there really isn't much of a difference between Wi-Fi streaming and Bluetooth. Haha! Challenge accepted, Wiim. I still have access to some of Amazon Music's library since I have an Amazon Prime account, because playing music over Wi-Fi is the only way to get album artwork to appear on the cool new touchscreen. If you're just streaming over Bluetooth, all it shows is this Bluetooth icon and the name of the song. Kinda boring and not really taking full advantage of this new feature on the Ultra. So just to appease my curiosity, I sat down and queued up some tracks on Amazon Music first over Wi-Fi, and then queued up the same track on Apple Music over Bluetooth. Both of those sources being lossless audio. And I gotta say, the Amazon Music version sounded a bit better. The stereo imaging was wider, more pronounced. The highs were a little more noticeable and sparkly in a good way. And the Amazon tracks just seemed to have a bit more liveliness to them, more dynamics, a little punchier in the lower frequencies, especially with kick drums. So that's the quick review of Bluetooth versus Wi-Fi. Bluetooth just seems more narrow and not as lively. But that's active listening. I'm sure if I was just doing the dishes in the kitchen, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But when listening critically, Wi-Fi streaming won every time. But one feature I was so excited about testing was the advanced room correction, a first for any Wiim product. So I followed the simple steps in the app, we made some calculations, bada bing, bada boom, and it sounded a bit off. The Aperion Audio Verus V8V bookshelf speakers I had set up have a frequency response of 30 Hz to 35 kHz. So I had the room correction software do a sweep from 40 kHz to 20 kHz, since that's the cutoff in the app. And man, I was listening to some tracks off of Eddie Vedder's solo album and his voice sounded muffled. It's honestly easy to A/B the room correction, since you can enable or disable it with a simple toggle switch in the app. And every time I disabled the room correction, the highs came back to life. So whatever it calculated, at least in my room in particular, made it a little worse. I mean, I was in middle school when the 90s alternative and grunge movement blew up. Every time I disabled room correction, I thought, oh, there's Eddie's voice. So that was kind of disappointing. But not everyone's room is the same. I know it's a bit of a weird place for my system being on the side of the living room, etc. But also, advanced room correction just isn't for music. I know this was also meant to be used for systems that were connected to TVs, and also the use of a subwoofer in the system, since bass management is now part of the advanced room correction, sweeping only the lower frequencies instead of all the way up to 20 kHz. So I did just that, setting up a small TV setup in the office here, using the same components as before, but also adding a Stark SW12 subwoofer. At first, just to see how it would handle the situation, I told the app to do a sweep from 20 Hz to 20 kHz, the whole gamut. I watched some demo scenes from Edge of Tomorrow that I'm very familiar with, and once again, the highs weren't as pronounced. When I toggled the room correction off, the dialogue was a little bit more intelligible. The bullet ricochets and piercing metal scraping sounds were more lively. Dang. Okay, so I did room correction again, this time only telling the app to make any corrections between 20 and 250 Hz, basically using the new room correction software strictly as bass management. And I gotta say, I think that's where the bread and butter is. Since it was only affecting the low end, the sparkle of the highs were there, dialogue was coming through very nicely, very intelligible, even with just a 2-channel setup, and the low end coming from both the speakers and subwoofer seemed a bit more focused, more controlled and less boomy than when I just had room correction off. So yeah, if anything, this new room correction feature excels at bass management. And some might argue bass management is all you need because those are the hardest frequencies to manage. All the way up to 20 kHz though? Not so much, at least in the 2 rooms I was listening in. So let's try and answer the question, who is the Wiim Ultra for? Well, with its many physical connections, it can and will do wonders for anyone wanting to connect their turntable, CD player, and computer to it as a main hub for all your music playback needs, as well as TV and movie watching needs via HDMI or optical. That alone makes it incredibly versatile. And seamlessly connecting to other Wiim products on the same Wi-Fi network, making whole home audio possible for a fraction of the cost compared to its competitors, especially the ones with LCD screens, mind you. So yes, if you want to use it for a spectacular 2.1 system connected to your TV, you listen to a lot of vinyl records and CDs, you have a massive collection of music files on your computer, and you subscribe to pretty much anything other than Apple Music, this is another grand slam from the likes of Wiim. But if you're like me, exclusively listening to tunes through Apple Music from an iPhone via AirPlay 2, you're going to be disappointed. Granted, there is a workaround. If you have an Apple TV 4K streamer and you have it connected directly to your TV, sure, you can stream music via Wi-Fi to the Apple TV 4K, or just play music through the Apple Music app on the Apple TV. But even then, I believe high-res lossless is still not supported by the latest Apple TV, meaning it doesn't support audio above 48 kilohertz. Let me know in the comments if that's been updated, but I'm pretty sure that's the case since they still don't support Dolby True HD or any DTS codecs for that matter. But there you have it, folks. I mean, if you have an Android phone and largely play your physical media collection of music and want a killer budget 2.1 system connected to your TV, the Ultra is where it's at, man. Hands down. And for me, the Wiim Ultra is what I still prefer because I can still use whatever amp that I choose. The thing about the Wiim Amp and the Amp Pro is that you are forced to use the amps inside of it. There is no pre-outs on those two products so that you can use whatever amp you want or the amps inside. No, you have to use the amps inside the Amp and the Amp Pro. But honestly, if it had Apple AirPlay support, the Wiim Ultra would be perfect for me. But I know it'll still be perfect for a large majority of you out there. So I still highly recommend it. But honestly, kudos to Wiim for allowing me to be transparent about this. Honestly, it says a lot about a company that doesn't want anything negative said about them on YouTube. You know who you are. But Wiim is not one of them. They understand that it's reviewers like myself that help their cause, iron out any kinks and make improvements for future products, you know? So let's give them a round of applause. And with that, this world is crazy as it is already, so it only makes sense to be kind to each other out there. Don't just watch TV and movies and listen to music all over the house. Experience all of that without spending a fortune with the Wiim Ultra. And of course, always be listening